Split complementary. Split complementary is when you're going across the color wheel, but not directly, and so you're using the colors that are adjacent to the color complement, right? So that if we started with green, we're gonna use violet and red orange as the complement colors to help pop that green. Indigo, we use orange and yellow. We're seeing that yellow and indigo and orange. Not only bind the characters together, it's help pop everything. And so I'm using those oranges and yellows to pop everything off of the purples and the violets. Same here, it's that green and orange and red as the complements. Yellow's complement is purple, but to the sides of purple, you have indigo and blue. Playing with value as well as this relate where I'm making the sun and even space, though it's black, I'm really washing it out with the sun glow so that the only true blacks on the piece are Superman's inks. Analogous. Okay, analogous colors are colors that reside on the wheel right next to each other. It could be 3, it could be 4, it could be 5. It really depends on the complexity of your composition. We tend to do 3 or 4 at the most. It can happen anywhere on the wheel, and it's heavily influenced in comics by your character colors, right? And so you saw me playing around with Green Arrow using its complements, and with Wolverine's yellows and blues by using its split complementaries. It looks almost monochromatic, but not quite. I'm not just using one color, but I'm using that color family that sits next to each other. So the yellows, the reds, the oranges all sit here, okay? And even though my character has like dark blue or black in it, I'm washing that with the orange as well. And so I'm pulling that color into that family by adding that orange wash to it. Kind of skating between the yellows and the greens, all right? And that blue has yellow in it too, so it pulls it in as well. Triadic and quadratic. Okay, this is when it gets really complex, right? You're using 3 to 4 colors that are not next to each other on the wheel. And so you're creating these triangles of color choices, or rectangles or squares. It doesn't have to be a perfect square or rectangle. So now we're bringing in multiple colors because we have multiple characters with multiple costume color. And so we're trying to use these relationships to be able to not only separate them from each other, but also make them look like they're within that same environment. They're being lit by the same light. And so I'm using one of the 4 colors as the main lighting. I'm using the second color as the ambient light, okay? And colors 3, 4, and 5 are coming from character colors themselves. By washing the characters in green, I'm pulling them all into that green color, right? So that the oranges and yellows become the 2 light sources, right? And their costume colors, the reds and the blues, are the costume colors that need to be part of that same composition. Same here, where I'm really using 2 complementary colors, blue and orange, and green, 2 other complementary colors. And then I'm playing the value game behind them so that whatever I'm doing back there doesn't really intrude into that. It just becomes part of that same ambient light that I've created for everybody. Trying to show you guys that it doesn't always have to be green and red or yellow and orange. I'm bringing these colors that are, you know, these magentas and aquas and purples that you can still create compositions with color. Colors that aren't very mainstream. Color temperature. This is probably the one relationship that every colorist uses the most. It can be a fallback, and it can also be something that you use as a twist on a color harmony too. So you can add temperature to your analogous composition or your split complementary. So what does this mean? That means that if you slice the wheel diagonally across, you get warm colors, you get cool colors, right? And the main rule about color temperatures is that warm colors tend to come forward more than cool colors. And so you'll see a lot of palette choices where the background, the sky, is always a cool color, and the characters in the front are warm colored. And that helps create that color depth because of just the temperature. Where I showed you that Green Arrow cover, I actually broke that rule by making the one green object the only solitary green object, and so your eye tends to go to it because of that. And so I'm taking that warm, cool rule and forcing you to yeah, you want to see the red first, but because there's only one green thing, your eye tends to want to see what's the one thing that's there. Had I done it all red, everything would have flattened out. Most common compositions, right? Cool background, warm foreground. Warm background, cool foreground. And to be able to break that rule, I'm using value. So my cool colors are so much darker than my warm color that they immediately come forward. Temperatures are so diverse, splits that space and creates that depth. Stumping down the detail of the city with a value sway so that the colors are going back. They're also not bright oranges, they're ochres and browns, so that they become a little mundane and so that it looks like a city. mostly the art, right? The art will tell you, okay, you know, he just drew one green arrow, tiny, on the floor with a crowd above him, and he's got to pop, and he's green. And so what's the best way to make that stand out? And so my decision was like, well, what if I go all red? And sometimes what I'll do is I'll do a quick test of it, see how it feels and how it looks. And if it works at a simple stage, once you render through, if you follow the rendering and the light, it should work as well. So I don't know that I can remember when I started breaking the rules, but it was dictated by the art more than anything else. You'll see it done mostly on covers because it's done for effect, than through the storytelling thing, unless it's like a flashback where you're using that specific, cheat to make it look different than the mainstream story that's going on.